from sea to shining sea and everywhere in between.
Wherever you are around the country.
This is America's Outdoor Talk program, Outdoors This Week. Outdoors This Week.
Get the kids, get the dog, get the cat. Sit them all down next to the radio. We are going to be talking about the great outdoors today.
And now, with America's latest news and talk on the great outdoors.
This is a dangerous place, man. You've got 1,000-pound bears wanting something that you have.
Here's your host, Alex Langer.
Why, that's me, ladies and gentlemen. How'd they get my name, Lynn? How did they get my name? Tell me, did you give it to them?
Yeah, kind of did.
All right, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us today. And we have a very, very exciting show for you today. We have none other than the king of all walleye. Normally, I would not be prone to such hyperbole, but in this case, it's probably somewhat true. This guy's name is Chip Leer, and he is a legendary sport. He's the onstage host for the 2012 National Guard FLW Walleye Tour, and he is conducting the All-Star Walleye School this weekend. I mean, right now as we speak, he's conducting a walleye school on Lake Mille Lacs in Minnesota. And we're going to pull him off the lake and question him thoroughly for your enjoyment. And then we have our usual suspects. We have Ron Lindner, who's going to rant about something today. Then we have Larry Whiteley, who's always very courteous and delivers a wonderful report from Bass Pro Shops. And then we have Sammy Lee, who today is interviewing Larry Nixon, one of the all-time greats of bass fishing. And Larry was big about 20 years ago. There was something called the Mega Bucks. He was king of the Mega Bucks, which was a different type of tournament than they have today. Larry is respected as one of the all-time best. He's right up there with Rick Clunn. Larry was active in the early part of bass fishing, and he's one of the guys that's still active. So I know he's had some problems with his shoulder, but who hasn't? I've had no problems with my shoulder. That's no badge of honor. And then we have Wade Bourne, who's going to be telling us about something. And then we close the show with a special guest who Lynn is going to find right after this. All right? So stay in your seats. We got a great show coming up. Don't go away.
Hang tight. More of America's Outdoor Talk program, Outdoors This Week, after this.
Hi, folks. Ron Lindner here for Lindner's Angling Edge Television. Right now, you can probably see us on WFN. All right, what's happening? Well, this weekend we had the big tournament on Lake Lanier. This is the FLW tournament. This is their super tournament, and it won't be announced until Sunday, the finals. On the other hand, one thing we do know about the lake is she is down. I mean, you've had this hot weather. And not only is Lake Lanier, where they're having a tournament, down many feet, changing the whole way that thing was fished. But that's neither here nor there. That's another story. It seems that thousands of fish die as Midwest streams are steam up. All over the place. They're losing about 40,000 shovel-nosed sturgeon were killed in Iowa last week as water temperatures hit 97 degrees, almost 100. Also, Nebraska fishermen say they've seen thousands of dead sturgeon, catfish, carp, and other species in the lower Platte. That's another shallow, warm river in our heartland. So many fish died in one Illinois lake that the carcasses clogged the intake screen near a power plant. This is a lake that's kept naturally warmer. It's a cooling lake, and you probably got temperatures that are off the charts. One guy over here with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources says it's something I've never seen in my entire career of 20 years, said Mark Flaminger. The fish are victims of one of the driest, warmest summers in our history. All over. I've never seen them, right? And I'm talking 45, 50 years I've been on. Australia. This is the warmest, hottest I have ever seen it. The federal U.S. drought monitor shows nearly 2/3 of the lower 48 states are experiencing some sort of drought. Naturally, it goes into the rivers and the reservoirs and the lakes that we fish. There's another, Gavin Gibbons, the spokesman for the National Fisheries Institute, says the sturgeon kill doesn't appear to have reduced the supply enough to hurt regional caviar suppliers. Ta-da for that. I'm not getting all excited about that. Anyway, there's another another biologist, he says we're talking hundreds of thousands of killed fish. He says maybe millions if you count the chubs and minnows and all the other stuff. It's millions if you look statewide. And Gary Stephenson said fish kills happen the most in small private ponds and streams, but the hot water this year has made the situation much worse. So we've seen it in Kansas. Kansas has really seen some declining water levels, like we had Texas. Well, and actually Lake Lanier, which is in Georgia, where they're having this tournament, the lake levels 2 years ago were really low, and they're low this year. They're not the dangerous low levels that they were, but many of these guys that used to fish docks, to go along, they can't fish the docks. The docks are on dry land. There's maybe 10 feet from the edge of the water before they even get up to the dock that's sticking out. That's part of the heat wave that we're experiencing. One large carp, now up here in the Dakotas, one large batch of carp at Lewis and Clark Lake in the Dakotas up here in South Dakota. This is one of my favorite smallmouth lakes, by the way. They had lesions. Now, fish get lesions when they start suffering a bacterial infection. That comes from extremely hot water. And anyway, by the by, I just hope that it's going to cool off. It's going to change things. Now, we're seeing some northern pike here. I'm seeing a lot of tulipy, which need cool water, but we're also starting to see some pike, which they could take some warm water, but the bigger pike, they need cold water. They're really a cool water fish, not a cold water fish, they're cool water fish. And after a while, when I start seeing pike floating up here, and I was fishing a tournament last weekend, and when we see pike floating out there, that's not a good sign. And I saw a couple of pike floating along with the tulipies. We have this normal summer kill that happens on a regular basis. But these are generally tulipi, which is a bait fish, which hang in that deep water. They just hang there. They don't want to leave that cool water, and when they lose the oxygen there, the fish die and they float up. But we're seeing pike, and that's a little different. Well, anyway, that's the report for now. We need a little cool weather, and next week, or maybe somebody else is going to give you a report on the FLW. That's the big tournament that they're having out on Lake Lanier, and somebody is going to be made a gigantic hero. His career is going to be made as well as putting $500,000 or $600,000 in his pocket. That's always nice, especially if you're young. Young Scott Martin, the son of Roland Martin, the famous fisherman, my buddy. He won last year. Early reports on the first day is he was doing well, and I'm not going to spill any beans here. Well, that's it for now. See you later, folks.
Yellow perch coming up on Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Would you like to spend less time on the couch and more time in the fresh air? Would you like your kids to stare at a bobber instead of the TV? Would you gladly trade in your microwave for a Dutch oven? Then you belong at Bass Pro Shops. Every week, we offer free skills workshops to help you get started. See the store or go to BassPro.com for more information. Bass Pro Shops. Your adventure starts here.
What is one of the most highly sought after North American freshwater fish? Bass, true. Crappie, yes. Walleye, you bet it is. Well, you can also add the yellow perch to the list. Prized for its sweet flesh and indiscriminate feeding habits, the yellow perch is found most prominently in the upper Midwest and the East. Yellow perch tend to congregate in large schools and clear, weedy lakes. The action for these voracious but light-fighting fish can be fast, if not exactly furious. Yellow perch also favor cool and clear water. In the spring, female perch will lay long strings of eggs strung like garland upon vegetation and bottom structure in the shallows. These strands may be as long as 7 feet. contain 50,000 eggs, and weigh as much as the fish itself. The yellow perch is also known for having the longest-standing freshwater record in the world, a 4-pound, 3-ounce fish caught in New Jersey in 1865. I'm Larry Whiteley, and this is Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Why, thank you, Larry, for that exciting report. Speaking of exciting, we have a guest that is very, very exciting. I'm thrilled whenever he's here. Mix one part Northwood sportsman and fishing guide and one part outdoor educator and one part media personality. What do you get? You get Chip Leer. Chip has been the host and presenter of the National Guard FLW Walleye Tour, and he's a legendary outdoorsman as well. He's been the stage host for the 2012 season, and he's one of the elite media outdoor personalities in the industry. He's been involved in fishing in numerous ways for more than 15 years. He's been a guide on various fisheries, including Mille Lacs Lake and Leech Lake in Minnesota. In fact, this weekend, he is hosting the All-Star Walleye School on Mille Lacs in Minnesota. And first of all, Chip, welcome to the show. And tell me about this Walleye School.
How you doing, Alex? It's great to be back. Yeah, the All-Star Walleye School, where I am now, right at McCoyd's Inn on the shores of Mille Lacs Lake, is a pretty unique school that we put together. You know, for years people have gone to seminars either at retail sporting goods stores or at sports shows across North America, and basically for the most part in the wintertime. And it's great, and it's educational, and we always learn something. But what we did with the All-Star School concept is we actually moved it to the shores of a lake. So we do some dry land seminars, but they're more like tackle box talks. Everything is small and intimate. We limit the amount of group, the size of the group. We only take 14 students like we have right here right now, and there's 7 pros. So it's 2 students, to every 1 pro. So it's a pretty nice ratio.
That's extremely intimate.
And the best part is we bust it up, and probably 80% of your time, maybe 70% of your time, somewhere in that ballpark, is spent on the water, in the boat, getting that, basically 1-on-2 educational experience. And then we do group seminars and talks over meals and a couple of breaks over the 2.5-day classroom. So we're right in the middle of it right now. We're on Mille Lacs. Everybody's out fishing as we speak, and I will be as soon as I hang up this and get back out there.
We'll get you out there in a hurry, but tell us about the kind of things that people want to learn about walleye fishing.
It seems that, dominant over the last couple of years has really been electronics. In fact, this first day is dedicated to just that. It's how electronics play a role in your walleye fishing, especially when you're searching out and finding new water. I guess there's a lot of questions, and in the interpretation of all the different views that we have, instead of sonar has evolved so much with now that we have side scanning and down imaging, and you can 360-degree views of what's going on underneath the boat. It all can come into play, and that's the interesting part about this school. Is part of it is to understand the latest and greatest, like the 360 imaging and things that are coming out that are hot, the latest. That's neat to talk about, but let's put it in applicable terms for everybody that's at the school and the units that they're using. So there's a lot of hands-on. A lot of guys will bring their boats, even though they hop in with the pros. Most take that option to get on the water and fish in the boat with the pro. There's a lot of guys that do bring their own equipment and their own gear, and our job is to help them understand their gear just that much better during the school. So it's a pretty neat opportunity. We just had Pete Gluzek and Mike Iaconelli on from Bass University. They said the same thing. Everybody wants to know about electronics. Well, I think it's the most questions. It's also probably the fastest changing area of our sport, and that comes into play. And so therefore, if you blink a couple of years, it changes so fast and so dramatically that if you're not paying attention, you're kind of left behind, so to speak. And that's part of our school is saying, you don't have to have the latest and greatest. If you understand the unit that you have, that is really key. Yeah, we'd love to, and all the manufacturers would love to have you jump up and get the latest and greatest. But first things first, you got to understand the unit that you're running. Do people understand the unit they're actually running? Well, that's what we're learning, and the answer is no. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that emphatically. There's a general understanding. Do they trust it? And the answer is no. Right. And that's really the difference between the pro and somebody that doesn't get to utilize this equipment all the time, is the trust that you have in a unit. I mean, there's no doubt when a National Guard pro like Bill Shimoda or Mark Kortz looks at their electronics and understands what they're seeing, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But for the casual angler, there's a big question. Is that a fish? It looks like a fish. It could be a fish, but it could be this. It could be that.
We need to take a break right now, but when we come back, you can explain more about how do you know if it's a fish or just a blip. We'll be right back. Don't go away, folks.
More of America's favorite outdoor talk program, Outdoors This Week, after these messages.
But it ain't whiskey and it ain't gin, no. He's getting walleye again. Buck doesn't cheat, Buck doesn't lie.
Wow! Woo! Hold on to that, and that's a good one. Since 1984. Tight Lines with Sammy Lee.
Are you confused about which type of plastic worm to use? Well, don't feel too badly, because most anglers are as well. Hello, this is Sammy Lee. In just a moment, the first $1 million winner in BASS history, Larry Nixon, will answer that question. But first, this message.
Aprons, t-shirts, hoodies, mugs.
You want it? We got it. And by we, I mean Sammy Lee. Check out the incredible array of Tight Lines souvenirs you can buy at the Tight Lines website and get fitted out from head to toe with quality products featuring your favorite fishing show. Buy them for yourself. Buy them for gifts. But make sure you buy them today. See the Tight Lines collection online at my website, tightlinesradio.com. Just click the button that says souvenirs and get you some.
Over 50 items to choose from at tightlinesradio.com.
Recently, I asked Larry Nixon, which style of plastic worm is best to use?
Well, that's one of the hard questions, and yet really it's kind of simple. It's just like the sizes and the diameters and the lengths. Basically, when I'm fishing more clear water, I have a tendency to throw more straight worms, and if I do throw a curly tail, it's a little small curly tail or a little small ribbon tail. It's more of a finesse type plastic worm. Seems like the dirtier the water and the shallower I fish, then I have a tendency to throw more of the gator tail style plastic worms, one that'll move a little more water, and I think he feels its presence better than he does a straight tail worm. Another way to select worms is in real cold water situations. A lot of times I'd prefer to throw something like a crawl worm or a straight tail worm if it's fairly clear water situation and the water's cold. It seems like less action is better. Probably 70% of the time in all the United States, your most efficient worm is a ribbon tail style worm. It seems like a lot of the lakes that are predominantly good worm fishing lakes have vegetation in them, and the ribbon tail it seems to work awful well swimming it through vegetation, and it has a real small vibration where the gator tail has a large vibration. And normally in lakes that have vegetation, their water is not that off-colored, and just seems like the little tighter swimming tail of a ribbon tail is better.
I'm Sammy Lee, and until next time, Tight Lines.
Tight Lines, brought to you by SpectraBurst, the ultimate color-changing technology. HuntMate, the best hunting app for your iPhone. U.S. farm-raised catfish, the healthiest fish from pond to plate. And by Bleeding Belly's Lures, the bait that actually changes color.
If you like Facebook, you'll love the Sammy Lee page on Facebook. Check out me, Sammy Lee, even more lovable than ever on Facebook.com.
That's right. Check out the lovable Sammy Lee. I think that's a secret message to you, Lynn. You think it is?
Oh, I hope so.
Listen, Sammy Lee, we kid around with him a lot, but he's been the host of the induction ceremony at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame for many years now, and we hung out with Sammy at the Bassmaster Classic. And we have with us the host of the National Guard FLW Walleye Tour, and he's legendary outdoorsman Chip Leer, serving again as a stage host for the 2012 season. And we were in the middle of a conversation with Chip Leer about reading sonars. And how do you know if a blip is a fish? That's the answer. How do you know if a blip is a fish?
The best way that I know how to interpret it is when you're running a standard 2D screen. The fish shapes tend to be like upside down moons, so they're half moons kind of upside down, and then depending on the size of those, inside of that half moon, I'm running a color unit, so the color is going to change on the inside. If you've got a grayscale unit, there's going to be slightly a lighter color of gray on the inside of that half moon. It actually is measuring density, where a hard rock is going to be a solid, brighter color on the color units, and it's going to be completely solid, where a fish is going to have a softer interior, so it's going to read the exterior of that fish, but inside there you're actually going to read that softer side to the inside of it. And I think that's part of why electronics, and we've talked about having an all-star school based just on electronics, or at least one full day of it, because of the fact between the color units, grayscale units, side scan, imaging, and now the 360, you could spend an enormous amount of time interpreting all these different signals and what to read. And it really is unique to each and every unit. Everybody is going to read a little different.
Are the side scan units, is the technology a little bit better? Can you actually see the fish?
Well, there's no question you can see the fish. But it's also, in all fairness, it's a more difficult screen to read because it doesn't necessarily end up all the way, when you're looking down in a 2D format, traditional type of liquid crystal display, it goes down, it hits the bottom, and it comes back up. The side scans don't have a return, so it doesn't really end. It just kind of goes out into abyss, and you're trying to interpret those signals in between there. And they look different at that angle. Plus, you have all sorts of debris, so the density of that reading is really key. But it certainly works. And it's one of those things. In fact, I just had a conversation with a guy about it last night. I'm getting better at it. I know I don't have side scan mastered, but I know that I know it well enough that I trust most of what I see. But I certainly aren't 100% on every signal I interpret.
Does a fish actually look like a fish, or does it look like something else?
It looks more like a blob going out to the side, and that's the hard part. And it also depends if it's around the side or behind something. Mm-hmm. So it takes on slightly different shapes. But once you recognize the coloration of it or the discoloration of it, because it depends on how you have your unit set up, it becomes a recognizable source. Or at the same time, personally, to dumb it down, which is the way I have to handle everything myself personally, is just that if I believe it could be a fish, I'm going to cast over there and eliminate that option before, and just go with everything as being a fish until I determine differently.
Right. A blob, for lack of a better explanation, it could be a fish. What percent of the time when you see a blob, is it actually a fish?
On the side scan, that's what I'm getting better at. I think at first I thought everything was a fish, and the more I use it, it's like anything else. The more you use it, the better you get at it. And there's certainly, I'm not the best example. I'm getting better in process. Let's put it that way. And I've used it for a few years now, but it's not something I use on a regular basis. The guys that are using it every day or more often than I am certainly are probably a little bit more proficient at it than I am. But I think I'm batting at least 50-50 right now, if not slightly above that.
All right. What other things do people want to know at the seminar?
I think how to attack a new body of water is probably the next most important topic, and that's what we spent yesterday on as we welcomed everybody in. It's really interesting approach, and the way we do that is we run the school much like we do, like anglers would be coming into a new body of water that they would be fishing a tournament on that they either have never been on before or that they haven't been to in quite some time, and how they go about ramping themselves up to speed on what's happening. What was interesting is the instructors that we have here and the pros that we have here, really the only two of them that had spent any time on the water before today were the guys that lived here. Everybody else came in cold, and I've already got text that everybody was out there less than an hour and a half, and everybody's already put fish in the boat. So, the learning curve didn't take very long.
Chip, we're going to let you go out on the water. We're out of time, unfortunately, but go out there in the water and come back with a few walleye, all right?
We're gonna do that. Keep fishing.
All right, thanks a lot, Chip Leer. Thanks for being on with us. And, folks, we'll be right back after this message.
Hey, what do you think you're doing? Don't change that dial. Alex will be right back with more of Outdoors This Week after these messages.
Bass boat equipped to the max. Gel coat and sparkle. She's my waterproof Caroline. Should see her out on the fly.
So you're going on a fishing trip and you're hiring a guide. What do you need to do to maximize your investment, which is what hiring a guide is? What common mistakes do guides see their clients make? I'm Wade Bourne, and this is Wired to Fish Radio. Roger Stegall has spent his life working as a fishing guide. He sees clients make the same simple mistake over and over again. Today, Roger tells how to solve this problem.
Stay with us. Wade will be right back.
This is Wade Bourne for Ducks Unlimited. The prairie pothole region of the U.S. and Canada provides critical breeding habitat for North America's waterfowl. Today, the prairie pothole region is threatened more than ever before. Ducks Unlimited and its partners are working to conserve this threatened landscape and ensure the future of waterfowl populations for the next generation. To learn more about this important waterfowl habitat and DU's conservation efforts, visit www.ducks.org. Never been a fan of gun rest because you don't want to lug a stick around with you? Then you need to see this. Compact gun rest that's no bigger than your hand. Keep one in your pocket until needed. Then hook your little Sure Shot gun rest around a tree limb or whatever's handy. With this item, my range has increased 25% and my accuracy even more. Go to WadeBourneOutdoors.com or Google Little Sure Shot Gun Rest to see the amazing video. That's WadeBourneOutdoors.com. Let me know what you think.
This is Wired to Fish Radio.
When you hire a fishing guide, you want the best value for your money spent, and the guide wants you to have the best time possible. But you're handicapped from the start if you don't have good tackle, especially line. Longtime guide Roger Stegall sees clients all the time who show up with old line on their reels.
Line is the cheapest thing that there is in fishing. I always said that your hand holds the rod, that holds the reel, that holds the line, that holds the hook, that holds the fish. What is the weakest link there? The line. What is the cheapest thing there? The line. And people won't put new line on the reels. They get a big fish on it, breaks their line. You ask them, they say, well, how old is that line? Well, let's say I put it on about this time last year. And sunlight, as everybody knows, hurts line. It'll make it break. You know, it makes it brittle, makes it break. And then people, they say, well, let's put this braid on. And braid is okay for a lot of things, but I'm not a big fan of braid. It's good for frog fishing where you're fishing around grass, lily pads, such as that. But braid is not the answer to neglecting line. You just got to put new line on as often as you can.
So take Roger Stegall's advice and change your line regularly, especially when you're going out with a guide. This is one simple way to maximize your fishing success and your fun. And that's today's Wired to Fish Radio. I'm Wade Bourne saying thanks for listening. Get outside.
No, Wade, you get outside. Don't tell me to get outside. I'll get outside when I feel like it. Listen, from Wade Bourne, we have our next guest. This guy has written a book about his Mount Everest climb. The Boy Who Conquered Everest, the Jordan Romero story. This is all you need to know about Jordan Romero. He is the youngest person to ever reach the summit on Mount Everest. First of all, Jordan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. Good to be talking to you.
Same here, Jordan. You hail from Big Bear Lake, and I've been up to Big Bear Lake. A lot of people don't know that's up in the mountains. Did you start climbing mountains up around Big Bear Lake or not?
I've been raised here pretty much my whole life, and growing up in the mountains of San Bernardino is where I got my roots in climbing and growing up doing tons of other activities like skiing and mountain biking and kayaking, and I've always grown up living around a very active lifestyle with my parents who traveled around adventure racing at the time before I even came up with mountain climbing.
Let's give people a clue of where Big Bear Lake is.
It's kind of northeast.
Right.
It's right above Palm Springs. It's right above Redlands, but it's close by though.
Did growing up there affect you? I mean, obviously it did, right?
It really did. I've grown up in a small town and being able to support the community to, before we went on these climbs.
Right.
And also growing up at around 7,000 feet where we live right at really helped a lot.
People don't realize the air really does get thin around 7,000 to 10,000 feet. And The highest place I was ever at was Sandia Peak in New Mexico. And, you know, we were there with camera equipment, and you don't realize it, but you get weak at high altitudes.
It's true. I mean, once you get to the high altitude and the thin air, it affects you so much. But it depends who you are and what altitudes you've been and where you live. You know, living up here, you know, it's and growing up at 7,000 feet, of course, it feels like normal. But once you go up to like above 20,000 feet or just above 18,000 feet, your metabolism just slows down, and everything you do takes so much effort, even just your basic chores and around the camp, like putting your boots on, putting your shoes on, and it's tiring up there. But it's just something you got to push through, and it was all worth it in the end.
I'm a sea level dweller. To me, 7,000 feet that's about as high as I can go. But to you, it's nothing because you live at 7,000 feet. Tell me about summiting Mount Everest. First of all, what made you do it?
I first came up with the idea to climb the 7 summits, which are the highest mountain on each continent, when I was 9 years old. And I was in my elementary school, and it so happened that my elementary school, that one of the teachers and their students, who usually paint a lot of artwork around the school, painted a mural of the 7 summits. So that was what inspired me, and it was just a piece of art that inspired me to do more research and to really get more into the 7 summits and researching more about them. So after I did that, I then told my dad about the mural I saw, and then it eventually just turned into going on little hikes and then eventually training for Kilimanjaro.
Describe the moment that you reached Mount Everest.
Reaching Mount Everest was summiting the mountain.
When you placed your foot on the summit, how did you feel?
It was a great feeling, even though that wasn't the last mountain we had to climb.
Yep.
It was still the highest mountain in the world, and you are literally on top of the world up there. So that feeling of huge accomplishment, because we spent just under 50 days on the mountain, spent so much time and hard work, and just that less than 20 minutes we spent on the summit was still worth it. I mean, when you're up there, you know, you're up there on top of Mount Everest, but up there we're only about halfway down because we have to come all the way back down. So,
Jordan, unfortunately, we're out of time for this segment. But if people want to read your story, the book is "The Boy Who Conquered Everest: The Jordan Romero Story." How can people get a hold of a copy?
People can get a hold of a copy anywhere books are sold. Just look up the title, "The Boy Who Conquered Everest," and it's available wherever, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, wherever books are sold.
Jordan, thanks for being on, and congratulations. It's an incredible feat, and we'll have to have you on again, all right?
Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks, Jordan.
Alex Langer, Outdoors This Week.